Hello and welcome back to JLXP, the Josh Leesman Experience. I am Josh Jat Leesman, continuing the series with Kien Lam, where on Wednesdays we sit down after 10 Thoughts comes out and kind of talk about the week to come. Last week we ended up spending, I think, 32 minutes talking about Doublelift benching, and then it ended up being a literally one game benching. So we will talk about that later on in the episode. We'll also be talking about TSM's resurgence to becoming what kind of like this second place consensus team, even though their record is still only tied for second. But Kien, how are you coming to terms with having 2 weeks left in the LCS Spring Split?
It's pretty crazy. I feel like if you go back and look at all my 10 thoughts, I think at around this point every year, you can read my intro paragraph and I'll have some variation of like, wow, if you blink, time flies by. And I think I've written that probably 5-6 times at this point.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I was gone over the weekend, so I had to go back and watch the VODs. So it was interesting to go back and be like, well, wait a second, where's the video of Cloud9 beating TSM? Like, surely it's somewhere.
You just Googled Cloud9 defeats TSM and nothing came up?
Yeah, nothing. It was like old. It was from like week 2 or whatever when they played last. And, I eventually came to terms with the fact that Cloud9 is no longer undefeated. Yeah,
you mentioned that, they're still the number 1 seed overall. There's actually no Steam achievement for an undefeated record.
Nope.
But there's kind of that consensus that Cloud9 losing may just be a good thing in the grand scheme of things. You listen to all of their player interviews afterwards, and all of them kind of say, I think it might have been Sven who said that this is the last kind of distraction type record. My KDA is gone, our first herd is gone, our undefeated split is gone, and now we can just play League. Mm-hmm. I do like that, but then at the same time, it's like the hype of the undefeated split is kind of gone, and that was a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, it makes sense all from like a literal level. I think I hate it in the sense that they are no longer undefeated. There's I like watching, I think as viewers it's fun for us to see this, this team is 14-0.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Now they're just this not undefeated team who's clinched the number 1 seed. Yeah. They have to play 4 more games.
They're just good. It's like, okay. There's nothing special about, because they've already clinched the first seed, so now we're just sitting here like, what are we watching Cloud9 for? And that's probably a question to actually address is, at this point you have 4 games left. On the last episode of JLXP, you were talking about how you want to see Blabber play a bit more jungle. Mm-hmm. One of the things I want to kind of go through this week is, as we go through all the teams, you being an analyst, not tied to any team, I'd like for you to be a freelance of sorts. This is you, right. Dr. Jat coming in. I'm going to ask you.
The consultant.
Yeah, the consultant. I'm going to ask you for every team, what is one thing you would want the team to continue doing? They're doing this well. Let's see more of it.
Yeah.
What is one thing you think that they should change? And hopefully it's something tangible. Because I think at this point, all of us start doing math. I'm like, this is how this team would mathematically get into playoffs. Mm-hmm. And of course, every team is still alive.
They need to win 2 games and only lose 1.
Yeah, and what I'm curious about, because I think a lot of us fans, we have results-based analysis where we will see a game finish and be like, okay, this team is good because they won. And I'm curious from your perspective, a little deeper dive into this. What are the things in the actual game that we have seen from them that you think they can improve on?
Right.
Or things they should continue doing?
Yeah, I like this. Well, we can start with C9. I wanted to go back to one thing you said earlier, though, when you mentioned every 10 Thoughts article going into week 8. You wonder, where did the split go? Yeah. I get tricked by this, too, because a lot of times after week 6, we're like, we're 2/3 of the way through the split. Mm-hmm. Not really. Yeah. Because we have 4 weeks of playoffs, especially with this new format where the round 1 is the top 4 seeds play, and then 5 and 6 will await the losers in the next weekend. Yeah. Then we'll have semifinals. Then we'll have finals. It's 4 weeks of playoffs. Mm-hmm. So we are currently 7 weeks through our 13-week split. Yep. If we think of it in the long term. So that's where the top teams are in their headspace. They can't be thinking, hey, 4 games left. They have to be thinking, hey, we're just over the halfway point to our eventual goal of winning the spring split. And now I'll answer your real Cloud9 question. I like pretty much everything that they do. I extra like the bottom half of the map. But the thing that you want to make sure works with this team, and this is what we've kind of been worried about for them all split, is when we did see them matched against competition, I don't necessarily think they responded that well to TSM having a lead. They just played like TSM didn't have a lead, and then the game was over really fast. Yeah. So I don't know exactly how you practice that in any useful way, because you don't want to say, all right, just sandbag the early game, guys, so we can practice being behind. You need to organically fall behind so that mindset is there. But this happens to me. This is kind of a bad example, but I threw an Uter game in solo queue like yesterday. Basically, I was really far ahead. I was like 5-0-7. I think I had Cinderhulk, Trinity Force, and a Wit's End. So because I was really far ahead, so I'm just like, I'm going to build damage items. And I had a Yuumi on my team. We were like 10,000 gold up. And I just felt so strong.
Yeah.
So I just like ran into 5 people and died like 4 times in a row. And just like, because I had that memory of being so strong, something in my brain just kept saying, oh yeah, go fight that guy, go fight that team. And it didn't work. So when Cloud9 was actually down to TSM, they had 12 games in a row of just being stronger and all of those plays working. And then when the other team actually had more gold and they weren't that strong anymore, they ended up running in. That's the bad analogy that's hopefully relatable for like the feeders in solo queue who have good starts to games. But Cloud9 needs to make sure when they are losing a game that they actually know how to play conservatively.
So I think both of us have been playing this game for so long that we have had like this. That's not the first time you've thrown a large lead.
Not.
And so whenever this happens to me at this point, I think I can I almost have this out of body experience where I step back and I can almost I can see myself tilting. And so there's the part of my brain that's like, oh yeah, I'm so strong, I can go kill him. But there's another part of my brain that's like, wait a second, I'm getting deja vu.
Yeah.
I've been here before. And I think Cloud9, I mean, these players have been playing for so long, they surely get the same feeling, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're saying that they don't play well from behind, what does it actually mean to play well from behind? Because I think a lot of times, like they were too aggressive, right? So they were forcing too many things. And so when you are a team that's behind, what does it actually like? Are you just doomed if the other team plays it perfectly, or can you do things from behind that forces the other team into like bad mistakes? Like, is it a situation where you can pretty much just wait for mistakes, or are there things you can actively do when you were behind that can help you win the game, even if the other team is playing perfect or near perfect?
Yeah, this is something I'm still not sure of because it will definitely change depending on the patch or the year. But I think with the current structure of the game being the winning team generally starts getting ahead in Dragon Soul counter, they get closer and closer to Soul Point, and Baron is so strong that it's really hard to take at 20 minutes. If you're down like 4,000 gold and the other team is really far away from Dragon Soul, what we saw a lot of the LCK teams doing before that league went on hiatus is they actually just don't do anything. And teams aren't necessarily like deep freezing waves to accrue a larger gold advantage because they don't want to lose pressure. Because if they do that, then the play for the losing team is actually, oh, let's go force a 5v4 because suddenly that gold lead won't matter. So actually just bouncing waves for 10 minutes so the gold lead freezes, but your percentage gold lead decreases, and that then gives you a higher chance to win a fight when it actually happens. So it's like it's a really difficult balance because you're trying to keep the gold frozen, so you're incurring a certain amount of risk, but you don't want to fight unless you know for sure you have a numbers advantage until you're on a Soul Point or a Baron, in which case you then take the team fight because you've shrunken your gold percentage difference to the smallest number possible. That's my current perfect play from behind that I see like SK or T1 do now when I was watching them in LCK. And I think that's what we might move towards. I'm just not sure yet.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's the one other thing I wanted to say about C9 is I read some of the comments of our last episode, and it was so easy to just say, oh yeah, C9 is super good, so let's talk about other teams.
Yeah.
And not necessarily just appreciate how good they are. So now that they have actually lost a game, I did want to spend just a little bit of time to appreciate how ridiculous some of their stats still are. The funniest one that I saw was their average tower differential in a game is 7.3.
Oof.
The next best average tower differential in the LCS is 1.
Wow.
Which is EG. And it speaks to when you lose a game, you're losing anywhere from like 7 to 11 turrets.
Yeah.
And since C9 wins all their games, of course that's going to be so spread. But the fact that the next closest is actually just 1 and C9 is averaging 7.3, I thought was pretty funny. And their early game is maybe the most statistically impressive ever when we consider like what their win chance is at 15 minutes. But just another shout out to Cloud9. I don't know if they'll end up going 4-0 from here on out because they play 100 Thieves, CLG, EG, and TL. I'm just going to go with the odds and say yes, 17-1 would be their end of season record. And I really enjoy watching this team.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not that like, if you wanted to pull me inside this, let's talk about Cloud9, we would just kind of gush about them.
Exactly.
For a long time.
There's not the most interesting discussion you can have about Cloud9 is how will they do against G2?
Yes.
How will they do against Fnatic?
Yeah,
and at that point, you're discussing these so difficult to grasp. You're kind of grasping at straws for concrete things to talk about. So that's why oftentimes we'll avoid that conversation. How would they do against T1? Yep. What are they going to do at MSI? It's like, well, we found out MSI is delayed. So it's like, how are they going to do in the spring split? We're just going to gush about how they're probably going to win.
Yeah.
Unless something happens or unless one of these other teams can make it interesting, in which case we talk about how the other teams make it interesting.
Yeah, one of my friends always kind of gives me crap when she's talking about how anime fandom works is a lot of discussion boards on like Reddit and stuff, especially between men, a lot of the conversations devolve into like who's stronger, Goku or Naruto, and that's kind of what that conversation feels like. It's like who's stronger, Cloud9 or G2? It's like well, you know, like how are we supposed to know unless they actually clash? It's like this fantasy fulfillment, which I think is fun, and of course, you know, I've done.
Yeah, I mean, if I wanted to get clicks, I would do NA versus EU power rankings 1 through 20.
Yeah,
and that's going to get clicks for sure. But it's such an impossible conversation to have. I still might do it at some point. Like I've toyed with the idea of like, you know, this would be a fun like hypothetical argument. I just feel like I would make lifelong enemies.
Of course, point. Sometimes it's fun. I love having a good 20-minute discussion on who's stronger, Goku or Naruto. You know, and I love having conversations like who would win between like the 2000 Lakers or like the 2008 Lakers versus like, the Lakers of now. Like those are conversations that are fun. Like,
even which is compare Cloud9 to 2016 TSM to 2016 Immortals.
You know, Cloud9, like, I do want to give a shout out if we're going to compare to an old team. You know, shout out to Cloud9 for clinching the first #1 overall seed for the first time since summer 2014, which that was a crazy stat when I realized. I remember just sitting there when they had won and clinched it. I remember thinking in my head was like, wait a second, when's the last time they clinched the 1 seed? So I went back all the way, and I would not have said 2014. I would have guessed that they had won somewhere in between because they've been very good.
I mean, they haven't won an LCS split since spring 2014.
Yeah.
So that #1 seed in summer was one of the most entertaining best of fives we've had in a final. It was at PAX, and I remember, this is like a weird broadcast reason to remember it, but I remember TSM didn't go backstage in between games to Retro because they wanted to I imagine they just didn't want to spend the 4 minutes walking back and forth. So we got these just amazing stage shots of them discussing in between games. You know, Loco Doco, the coach, would come out and talk to Bjergsen, and I think Reggie would come out as well, and they'd just be having these group huddles. Normally we see them in the back with their table full of bananas and fruit in the LCS now, but that shot was one. I just, for some reason, that sticks out to me.
I mean, that was by far so. I remember I wrote an article about the best Cloud9 versus TSM best of fives ever. There was like 7 or 8 of them at the time I had done this, and we were going into another final, or a semifinal with them, and I put that one as the #1 series because I think that kind of that changed everything, right? Because Cloud9 had won 2 straight before that. A third straight would have just kind of cemented everything. You know, it was Bjergsen's first year, and there are just so many storylines driven into this. You know, Hei's lung had collapsed halfway through that season. There's a ton of different things, and it was kind of like this almost era-defining moment where it was Cloud9 was starting to like take over, and then TSM was like, no, this is our league. And they won that one and just kept going from there, and it was like it became TSM's world. Besides the weird CLG,
that was Bjergsen's real emergence. Really, was kind of during that season.
And then when NA went to Worlds that year, and I've talked about this with a few other people, when we talk about parity, and you've mentioned this earlier in the season, is we want Cloud9 to have challengers. That was by far the most contested split in maybe an LCS history. Right. And they both went on to have very strong Worlds runs. Both of them made it to quarterfinals. And I think that's something that when we talk about parity, like that's exactly what you want is 2 teams kind of at the top of their game pushing at each other. And you know, 2014 has there's a lot of regret when I think back as a fan. Like that was a year that I felt like, you know, Cloud9 could have gone for. Like if they, like I remember talking to Hai about this, and he was saying, he felt like if the matchups had been switched, so in the quarterfinals, it was Cloud9 versus Samsung.
There was the two Samsung teams.
Yeah, Samsung Blue. And Blue was basically better Cloud9, and White was basically better TSM. And Hai told me like he felt like if they had switched the matchups, they wouldn't have necessarily won, but you might have seen two NA teams advance to semifinals if they had swapped the matchups.
Yeah. And I've heard that before. I also think that World, Blue and White were the two best teams at the World Championship.
They were very good.
So I don't think anyone was beating White. TSM technically took a game off them because they picked Singe top lane. You can, like, as a manner pick almost. Yeah. But that I actually think we should do a retrospective type series on past NA Worlds or, past hypotheticals of best team NA.
I mean, it's fun. It's like have you listened to the replayables on The Ringer where they go back and rewatch old movies? I mean, that's something that'd be very easy to do.
Well, I think rewatchables is one of them. They also do like recapables. Yes, they just did one for if you're going to watch Westworld season 3 or something. There's a lot of good ideas to pull from that we can, I think, transport to League of Legends. But we'll get back to your earlier question of going through the 10 teams. We've done Cloud9. We can go down the list, I think, of your 10 thoughts, unless we want to do it out of order.
I think maybe going down the list, and just at the very least, like we don't have to talk as long about every team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So FlyQuest at 8-6, huge disappointment to me that they were at 8-4 and had a chance to kind of put the rest of the league in the dust minus Cloud9 and say, hey guys, we're the second best team. They just 0-2, and now they're 8-6, and I liked what you wrote in your article where you say they feel like the team that aces all of the quizzes and they do all of the homework, and then they just don't do well on the test.
I mean, it's kind of choked in a big moment. This isn't the first time it's happened, the split either. Like when they had a game going to Cloud9 earlier this split, I was like, okay, if they can win here, they can really cement their status as a contender. Now at this point at 8-6, technically they are tied for second, but a couple games from being out of the playoffs now. Like we said, FlyQuest was a sure bet to make playoffs. Well, at this point, I don't know how sure that is anymore. Like that, personally, I still think they're gonna make it. But when you look just at a pure standing things, a couple bad things like somebody gets sick this week, they're out.
Yeah, my kind of consultant view is I dislike the fact that they do lack the quality wins. I feel like Viper has been a bit of a weak point for them, which has been making it more difficult for them to play around. But then the consultant in me says, hey, PoE is still really good. I think their EG loss was a bit of a draft issue. They went up against the Senna TK from EG, which I think is EG's best strategy, and also just something that will probably just continue to get banned out in the coming weeks. And that's kind of another tangent. I actually feel like Blue Side might be particularly strong right now, just with the current number of like things that you think of letting through that are really strong, like an Ornn or a Senna. You don't really want to do either of those things.
So can I follow this tangent real quick with a question? Every time I see this happen,
you wonder why they don't just trade.
And I'm like, just don't ban anything on red.
Yeah, I know.
Like, what is that a viable strategy, or is that actually just kind of hinting?
It is and it isn't. It depends on the situation, and you actually need to go like pretty deep to understand it. So I've tackled this question a few times in the past, and the Juggernaut Worlds is one example of this, where this is 2015, and I'll just tell you what was OP. The two most OP picks were Gangplank and Mordekaiser. And if you ban nothing, Gangplank dunks on Mordekaiser. So you pick the GP, and they get the Mord, and it doesn't matter. If they ban the GP, Mordekaiser dunks on everything, right? So that's when you have like the S double plus and the S plus is just not worth the trade. So you end up just banning both because the other team can force you into it in that way. So unless there's three things that are all equally powerful, which is really rare, then that type of trade doesn't work. And then at that point, also, if there's three things and one of them counters the other, Blue side just bans one of them, leaves the other two up, knows they can take the counter, and then they force you to ban one. But wait, since you've banned one, you've left the other one up, so you now have to ban the other. So Blue side holds just so much leverage that you need this perfect storm in order to allow those full trades to go through. And the extra thing is, the other example is FlyQuest in 2017 spring, High's first split on FlyQuest. I hope I remember this properly. It was Camille, LeBlanc, and Rengar. For so long, most teams were just triple banning those on red side, except FlyQuest wasn't. And the extra thing you need to be able to do if you're going to leave all three unbanned is you need to be 100% comfortable that you can play all of the stuff, and then that composition also still has to make sense.
Yeah.
So FlyQuest could do it, but a lot of times, like, you wouldn't actually want Camille and LeBlanc on the same team, or like Rengar, LeBlanc on the same team when they were super OP, but having one of them and then building the whole composition around it would work. So it is really complicated. That was kind of just a throwaway. I look at the win rate of blue side, this split in LCS, it's like 59%. It's a little higher than normal. And I think a little bit of that is because of all the red side bans. But my advice here is, like, don't make Turtle Ignar play against Senna TK, because TK is just going to shut a fed TK is going to shut down Ignar. And then Ignar is so critical in FlyQuest getting fights that I actually think that was a bit more of a draft loss than normal.
Is that true generally for FlyQuest? You think it's they're struggling with draft things, or was that just kind of that one specific game?
I think I'm hoping that it was just kind of that one specific game. It was a EG loss, and then they lost to TSM, and it was actually a close game.
Yes.
Where Broken Blade played a ridiculously strong set, and I think that was winnable for FlyQuest. So I'm not really saying that's like a big disaster, and that's why I have them actually going 3-1 in the next 2 weeks and finishing at 11-7.
Do you feel like they have some, like you talked about Viper being a weak link, and we've seen like, so he's obviously like an S tier player on Riven. We haven't quite seen the same level of performance. Like, he might not be bad on other champions, but we haven't seen a Riven level performance on any other champion. Is that something that kind of hurts them? Is, like, if you exclude the Riven effect, like, is Viper kind of, I don't know, if like a black hole in top lane in terms of champion pool? Maybe that's kind of a rough way of putting it, but is that kind of something they have to deal with?
It seems a little bit like they have to deal with it. They keep putting him on Aatrox as just this blind pickable thing.
It's kind of like Riven.
It is, but they've won 2 of those 6 games, and they're an 8-6 team. And I just don't feel like he has that large of an impact on those things. I'm checking right now. Their most banned by FlyQuest is actually Tahm Kench, which makes sense because it does shut down the way Ignar wants to play. In terms of what I would want FlyQuest to do here, PoE actually is a very diverse player, so is Ignar. So I'd try and prioritize a Set or an Ornn or a Mordekaiser for Viper, assuming he's improved his Mordekaiser since the TL game earlier in the split. And I just kind of go with that. TSM is 8-6. We can focus on them being good again. And
are they good again? So that's I mean,
yeah. What do you think?
I mean, so this happened. This is not the first time this split where I've been like, oh, okay, maybe TSM is the second best team in the league. Maybe they can challenge C9. Of course, after the 2 games, they looked phenomenal in both of their wins. Then
they beat the top 2 teams
and beating Con. So my conclusion with them essentially at the end was, if you are TSM and you get this one win, suddenly in the back of your head, you're thinking, okay, the only times we lose is when we screw around too much in draft pick and ban or whatnot, like, or we throw our leads. And I feel like you're in a position to be a very good. If those are your biggest problems, is you suck mid to late game because you keep throwing early leads and you draft weird. I don't feel like those are really good problems to have, right? Like, because you still have a lot of the hallmarks of what a good team looks like. And overall, I feel very, very good about TSM. But then you see the 6 losses and you're like, okay, it's one thing to say it's like we've identified our problems, and it's another thing to actually fix those problems. And we haven't seen that consistency out of them. And I think but that's the results-based analysis where I know they've lost 6 games, and sometimes that makes me feel nervous. But when you look at the eye test over the past weekend, they just looked really, really good.
They looked extremely good. They looked like they could. I think C9 played below their average in the C9 TSM game, but I still think TSM looked the best they have looked all year, and they've also had a 4-game winning streak at one point in this year. Remember, they dropped the first 2, then they won 4 in a row, then they went on their next. That's when they started the 0-2 2-0 bouncing. So almost the whole year, whenever I've talked to, this has even happened in interviews publicly, when players are asked who the second best team is, it's usually TSM. And that's regardless of what their record has been. They're like, well, they're not saying TL. They're not saying, oh, yeah, actually, Impact and Core JJ, they're just smashing behind closed doors and they go on stage and it doesn't work. It's been TSM. So that's why this team does continue to be perplexing, and we're not going to be able to make any definitive statements about this team because the biggest question mark is, well, yeah, they're just going to show up on stage and lay an egg like they did 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
TSM should have had this 2 a week against the easy teams when they played CLG. And instead they have the 2 a week against C9. This is the hypest to do it because just as your expectations are at the lowest, they come in with this surprise ending where they're able to beat C9 and FlyQuest. So to kind of answer your question, I do think they're the second best team. I think when I look at their record or their schedule coming up, that's Immortals, Golden Guardians, 100 Thieves, Dig, I think they can win all of those games.
Yeah.
But they lost 6 that they shouldn't have,
so
basically.
When you're looking at them, what is the thing that you feel like, hey, we need to really focus and like just kind of hammer this, like iron this out going into the last couple of weeks here? What is the thing that can make us from this like inconsistent team to just the good team that we all saw this past week? And what is the thing that really they changed and made it run so well?
I hate to do this because I think that draft is a greatly overused analyst term.
Yeah.
But draft was a big change in the last week in the fact that they played so many things in previous weeks that were just complete curveballs across the whole composition.
Yeah.
And some of them worked. They pulled out a Kiana top and everyone praised him for it, calling them geniuses. They probably just didn't have to.
Yeah.
They probably, we know they're 5-0 on Zyracon. We know they're 4-0 on Syndra. We know Broken Blade is 3-0 on Set. Dardoch is 3-1 on Gragas. When you look at their most played, their do or die compositions, they're really strong.
Yeah.
And they've spent the whole split searching for their flexibility, and I don't think they've necessarily found it. Their flexibility ended up just being Bjergsen. Let's put everyone else on something reliable, and let's throw the Bjergsen curveball where he can eat bans and still have a good Aurelia game, or he can pull out Zilean, who really only him and Jensen, I think, are the 2 capable Zilean players in the LCS. We've seen that from kind of years past.
We don't even see it much across the world. It's
like these 2 guys play Zilean and make it look good.
I don't know what it's like. There's like some Danish Slack chat where they're sitting there like, oh, actually, you guys, Zilean's like, and they just kind of trade secrets.
I just think he's a really weird champion unless you put the games in.
Yeah,
you're not going to play him. And they, for some reason, put the games in like 4 years ago, and then they have it as his pocket pick. It's never going to be this great blind pickable thing.
The Zilean NA club.
Yeah, exactly.
Has there been a comp? So you're saying with the draft, has there been a comp that you do kind of hope we see them try at least one more time? Like I think we saw Maokai get played by.
So we're talking about let's not do the Zyracon thing. Let's try and do a switch up comp. I think the meta is, this might be a bad term, thick enough that you don't need to have one-off picks right now.
The meta is thick enough. We should, let's put that as the title.
Yeah, so it's like, hey, if you just want to play high DPS 80 carry with engaged tank support, you can. Mm-hmm. There's not much someone can do to say, no, you can't do that, because there's enough engaged supports and there's enough high DPS 80 carries that you're fine. So I want to see them just do that with slightly different champions while still playing the same style and just grind that. That would be my biggest tip for them. Broken Blade, let him initiate. Give him a go button. He seems really good at that. And that's the biggest thing I've actually been impressed with is Broken Blade's success this split. He's just been really good.
It's nice to see it because I think he kind of had a down split last split, and it was right after we were so high on him,
Yeah.
And so good to see him back. I think he's a very strong player. Hopefully that continues.
Yeah. 100 Thieves is the next one at 7-7. And this is one of the weird things that we noticed about week 7 is 3 teams went 2-0.
Yep.
TSM, 100 Thieves, and EG. And I really did not expect 100 Thieves to do this. I bolded one thing you have here. You said they still suffer from a lot of the same problems, which is that Ryoma struggles to have a strong presence in lane and Stunt dies too much.
Yep.
But how do you think they're winning?
I mean, so there's one game where Someday just solo killed Soaz, I think, by 16, 15 HP, something like that.
Yeah, and I actually believe I miscalled that on cast, where it looked to me like he had canceled an auto.
Yeah.
He actually hadn't. Soaz did everything he could. He was just 16 health short.
He just stat checked it wrong.
Yeah, and someday killed him.
Yeah, that the game kind of flips on a knife one way or the other there. Like if Soaz has gotten that kill, then the game probably swings the other way entirely.
Possibly.
But because someday won that, they had a huge win condition going into it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a strong answer for like, okay, why is this team necessarily winning? I think this is a team that's maybe a little better than other teams at not just getting rolled over. Like because they have a lot of veteran players on their team, they know when they can just wait.
Yeah.
If the other team screws up too much, they can kind of snap and take it. They have the someday win condition in top lane where if you can get him ahead, he can put on so much pressure and just kind of create a win condition for you.
Yeah.
So they're able to take a few games that way, but I don't have a good answer for you. Do you have a good answer?
I tried to figure it out because I look at their upcoming schedule, C9, FlyQuest, TSM, COG. I think they probably go 1-3 or 0-4.
Yes.
Which would end them at 7-11 or 8-10. So I still don't necessarily feel like this 100 Thieves team is strong despite their 2-0. But what I think they did is man, drafting is a theme for me when I actually check back all these notes. They drafted better late games than their opponents while not necessarily drafting super weak lanes. Mm-hmm. And when I've seen this pop up a little bit online where people say, drafting is really just simple. Just make sure you have the better late game, but you can also draft strong laners. Not really. Yeah. Like that's just usually there's trade-offs in draft, but when I need to get these comps up again because I thought it was actually really interesting. They did something in one of their games that I was casting and it looked really weird and then ended up playing out. It was their win against Dignitas, which really is a game that could have gone either way.
Yep.
But their solo lanes were Renekton and Syndra. Those are, generally speaking, just early game smash mid laners. And normally you have like a theme of the composition that you're trying to go aggressive with. So you would pair that with like a Leesman or an Elise or a Gragas or something that's really good at ganking early to just destroy those lanes. They paired it with Trundle. And that felt really bad in the moment.
Yep.
But when the game hit 40 minutes, because they had Trundle, they were better in team fights.
Yeah.
So it's weird, right? But I think I'm not willing to say this was like sure, if we're talking about worlds and like high tier execution, you're never going to get away with this. But I look up just stacking across the board, like an Aatrox versus Renekton. Sure, Aatrox outscales maybe a little bit. Zoe versus Syndra. Actually, I'm not really willing to say who outscales that. Bottom lanes, Aphelios, Tom Kench versus MF Nautilus. Yeah, the Aphelios outscales. But then to me, Trundle is just one of the biggest late game monsters in the game. Mm-hmm. When you match him up against Elise and compare the compositions, yeah, actually 100 Thieves has a slightly better late game in my opinion. And they pick strong enough laners that they aren't going to fall super far behind.
But it's kind of a weird when you draft like that, right? It's the idea that their strong laners just let Trundle farm for a bit, and so you can get.
Well, Meteos actually just ganked a bunch early.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying it's a great comp or that they played it well, but it's how they won because in both of these games they just picked stronger, just slightly stronger 5v5 or late game comps while picking decent lanes.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I mean, so you mentioned the drafting. I saw on Reddit the other day, somebody had created like a tool that lets them predict who's going to win just based on the draft. And they said they had like a 70%. And so I think the idea behind it was like, oh, it's actually that easy. Just create.
I think, I don't want to get into it right now because I know this person put a lot of effort into it. And I'm actually just one of those Redditors who like, oh, I heard from a friend he did this. But I heard from someone that there were some big mistakes in the way he made his conclusions.
Okay.
So I'm gonna
take that with the draft is not that easy. Just take it with a grain of salt.
It was something along the lines of like he made. I don't want to say something that's wrong, but without checking it myself, I'm not taking that one.
Right, respect the effort.
Yeah. Anything for you? Someday has 10 solo kills is a stat that I had for you, which is tied for the most in the league.
I think that's awesome. I mean,
he's now. We talked about wins over replacement the last time we talked about Someday. What is he at now? 3? He's solo carried 2 or 3 games.
Give or take a few decimal points here or there.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I think it's like without him, I don't think they're 7-7.
Yeah.
How many games it is, probably harder to say.
Yeah, I think there were 3 games though where he ruined the other top laner. It was the Impact Aatrox versus GP game.
Yes.
It was the Lucian versus GP game against Golden Guardians, and then it was this Aatrox versus Camille game against Soaz. If you put an average top laner in all 3 of those games, they might be 4-10.
They might be 4-10, and I think that's a pretty huge testament to Sunday. I think going into the season, anybody that was putting 100 Thieves up a little higher was saying, "Oh, Sunday is going to have to be the catalyst for this team," and he has been the catalyst. So kudos to him.
Yeah, EG at 7-7 is another one that last week I really wouldn't have expected them to be back at 500.
But at the beginning of the season, this would not surprise you at all.
Yeah. So I've been waiting to do our overall playoff predictions because like what I actually did is I just tried to predict all 20 games as the season would end.
So you went through and actually...
Yeah, so I actually have the end of season standings to predict my playoffs.
Yeah.
I have never predicted 20 games in a row, so this is not going to be accurate.
No, this is the parlay. You know, you get the 20-game parlay right here.
But once I did actually get my end of season standings, the preseason of EG being like 4th or 5th, it looked fine. They're 7-7 now. I think they're gonna end up going 2-2 in their next 4. That's my prediction. Where they play Team Liquid, Dignitas, C9, and Immortals. Not a super easy schedule by any stretch, but if they just win the Dig and Immortals game, they're 2-2 and they move it at 9-9. And I've really liked Bang and Zeyzal's newfound synergy, where it actually seems like that is a winning lane that the team can play through rather than just contributors who hope someone else gets a lead.
It's kind of weird because like they had so much, I don't know if internal drama is the right word here, but there's a lot of like leakings of people in like interviews or on stream talking about how things were kind of not working out. And for them to come out, and there was a moment right after the game where I saw Bang was walking with Sven Skaren on Monday, and they were like just kind of, or it wasn't Monday, I forget what game it was, but they were walking and they were kind of just joking around immediately after the game. And it was just like, that was like, that's, you know, I don't want to read too much into it, but it's like good camaraderie to see, and it's kind of maybe counteract some of the stuff we've seen behind scenes. Maybe they had a good sit down, you know, one of those like aired out sessions or something. Like, you know, like in the movie montage of the EG split, where you have this moment of tension. Suddenly, they all kind of they get together, they get to air out all their frustrations. They cry, they hug it out, and now we have a team that looks like, you know, solid. Yeah.
So that's actually, this is maybe a bit of a tangent, but conflict isn't always bad.
It's good.
A lot of times conflict is good, and a lot of times the fact that you have the conflict and that you can work through it and take responsibility for things and apologize for things actually makes the relationship stronger than they ever would have been if conflict didn't exist.
It builds a lot of trust to have that moment.
Yeah. Like, apology is one of the biggest forms of growth in these things. So we don't know what happened because the stuff we're referencing with this EG team is stuff that actually kind of went out to the public.
Yep.
We saw Bang give interviews where he said, I can't control everyone on the screen, so it's really frustrating to me, which is basically saying, hey, these 4 other guys don't know what they're doing, but I do. We have Zeyzal talking about how Jizuke doesn't listen to calls.
Yeah.
And then Bang, if you don't do what he wants to do, he just runs it down.
Yeah.
So they seemed like very real issues, but there was recently a Bang interview that, again, I need to finish checking out because this is Wednesday morning, and I think the interview just came out. But he mentioned he saw Bjergsen's drive at the start of the split,
I saw that as well.
And it was kind of motivating for him of, oh yeah, actually, I need to take more responsibility in this communication. And I think that's something that's relatable to a lot of people. Whenever they're frustrated with others, you need to, it's really, really hard to make sure people actually know what you're thinking about.
Yep.
It's really easy to think that other people should know what you're thinking, but just it's not. Just remember that. There's a lot of agency required in communicating your own feelings and emotions. And for whatever it's worth, what we saw on stage did look greatly improved from the team we were looking at just 2 weeks ago. And if they are able to actually get some laning advantages from Bang Zeyzal and from Jizuke, I don't think they're going to get it from Kumo.
Yep.
But
Kumo had a 4-0 game, though. He started a game on Jayce.
The Jayce game.
I'm not really sure he did anything besides get like last hits and team fights, but, you know, it was like...
The Jayce game was so weird. So I think I talked about this a little bit with Mark, but I wanted to tell you. The Jayce GP matchup is you have to play it really, really sharp to win this Jayce, because if you don't kill the barrels, you can't actually step up to GP. So what GP does is he puts a barrel down next to him. If it ticks down to 1 and it's just there, and then the GP has another barrel left, he can watch you move to auto it, and as soon as you're in range to auto it, GP can beat you with his parlay, chain a second barrel, and get you.
Yeah.
So once it's down to 1, you can't step up to the wave, and GP has push.
So you've already lost.
So you've already lost. So what you need to do is when the barrel lands, you need to be, as Jayce, contesting that barrel right away.
Yeah.
And Kumo wasn't doing that, so he actually lost lane against GP. And that's not good. But
I mean, yeah, you're picking Jayce and you don't win lane.
Yeah, exactly. So he wasn't playing the lane the way it's been described to me as you need to play it, but he's still like a mechanically solid Jayce in team fights.
Yep.
Weird. That pick worked. That is never a drafting decision where you say, you know what, we're going to pick Jayce so that we can team fight. But if Kumo is really comfortable on Jayce, and you can get through a laning phase that, sure, matchup-wise you should win, but if you're picking another champion into GP like an Aatrox that Kumo can't do well, and you're just getting slammed, yeah, I'll take it.
Yep.
That's a smart decision based on the tools that the coaches and the teams have available, and it leads to victory. So
was that just a comfort pick for them?
I think it was.
I mean, Jayce is not meta.
I think it's Kumo's comfort pick. Remember when he was subbing for C9? He had all his Jayce games?
That's right.
Last split? Yeah. Jizuke is the other guy with the most solo kills, by the way. He has 10.
Also, does not surprise me that Jizuke would. Does he have one of the most like isolated deaths as well, too? Then, right?
He has 12, which is not the most. Haunter has the most,
yeah,
but it's the most for mid laners.
Okay, I mean, so that like both of those stats make a lot of sense. I'm curious though. You said they looked a lot better. What was the thing that they specifically? Was there anything about this week that you're like, oh, we should definitely just keep doing this? Going forward,
they need to keep drafting strong lanes for Bang Zeyzal.
Yeah.
If Senna is ever available, they seem to have put the most time into it and understand it the best. And it's actually extra good for them because I think Zeyzal is their kind of main guy, as he was on C9 when they're making these calls. It's his biggest strength as a support. So when he has more gold and is just, an extra 700 health to make initiations in, it gives him so much more freedom to control the map.
Yeah.
So Senna is just extra good for EG.
One of the things I talk about, is this a fair assessment to them? As I called them kind of the coin flip Leesman player, where you're a jungler, you've seen this guy in solo queue. You see Leesman on the other team. If you're not, sometimes if you're just on autopilot, you forget that he might be invading you at level 2. But I think most good junglers know if there's a Leesman on the other team, you have to check that bush because Leesman might just be sitting there trying to just cheese the shit out of you. And sometimes it feels like that's what EG plays like is they kind of like if they don't get that early cheese in the game and they don't get the snowball going, they kind of just int it. Then just kind of run it down. Is that a fair?
Yeah. When I read that, I actually hadn't thought of it that way. So I will need to look at the games with that lens to make sure, because my read of the team has kind of always been they're a little bit slow and controlled aside from Jizuke. So yeah, I think some of their games can come out that way with Jizuke. I need to see if it actually transfers to more of the players. Like, is Svenskeren playing that way as well? There's
just been a few games that way as well? Like Svenskeren's like 08 on Leesman.
He is. Like he just really always feels like sometimes he just feeds.
Yeah, they just press the go button a lot. And it's been multiple games where Svenskeren and like Zeyzal have just kind of fed their asses off. Like I think Bang is the one guy on this team that's not like he's definitely not the coin flip Leesman player. He's gonna do whatever the standard jungle pathing is, but the rest of the guy seems to. I don't know. That's kind of been my impression when I think of what this team is.
I mean, it matches the fact that I don't know if they're going to win when they start a game.
But
the TL game is going to be mega interesting.
Yeah, because this is a team because like this coin flip Leesman, like you could be anybody. You could be like a gold player if you get that cheese off against a diamond jungler. That could be like you can start looking a lot better, right? And it kind of feels like EG is a team that could just randomly take, I don't know if a whole set, but like games off anybody in the league.
Yeah,
just by. Like it wouldn't surprise you that much if they just randomly smash Cloud9, for example, right?
Woo! The Cloud9 one it would.
Okay, maybe
anyone else.
Anybody else.
Yeah, anybody else. We got Cloud9, then we got the rest.
Okay. Yeah. Outside of Cloud9.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like to me. Is it's a team that really hard to predict. Sometimes they look great, though.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Immortals is another team at 7-7 as we move down this one. Revenge is a dish best served by Xmithy.
Shout out to the boy. 2-0 against his former team.
Yeah, his play against TL has been probably just the best feeling for Xmithy possible.
Is Xmithy, in an isolated world where Xmithy always gets to play against his former team, is he the best jungler in the world?
Oh my goodness, maybe actually. In terms of, hey, when junglers play their former team matchups,
yes,
it seems like he's the best.
I mean,
it's a very rare thing.
See, this is my secret strategy for NA winning worlds is we export Xmithy to Europe, to LCK, to China, and just convince him the whole league is his ex, and then bring him back to NA. He doesn't have to do anything over there, and then we bring him back and say, hey, this is your old league. That's how we win worlds.
He needs to learn how the team works. Unfortunately, he needs to learn the tendencies of the players and what the things the teams need. I bolded something that you wrote. You said it was one of IMT's cleanest wins of the split as they continue to rotate to objectives faster and more cohesively than Liquid. I agree, but this has also been one of my meme things about Team Liquid. Doesn't it seem like this is every team against Team Liquid?
I mean, that's fair, too.
In most of Team Liquid's losses, we think, man, the other team, they were just the better team. They played really well today. Liquid might just be playing really bad sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's one fight I remember Doublelift was like on Misfortune, just sitting in the bot bush, kind of like trying to find a way. Everybody else is on like the other side, and it's just like what is going on here? Why is your Misfortune not with the team?
Yeah,
like it's one thing if you're on as like any sort of skirmisher, but like Misfortune kind of feels like a champion that needs to be in the front to back kind of setup, and that was a moment to me that I was like something's like really off about Team Liquid right now. I mean, we're gonna have I don't know what it is, but Immortals managed to capitalize on that, and that's something that we've been talking about all split. Is like how does like this team doesn't feel like they should be this good, but at this point we are 7 weeks into the split, and my realization was, well, look. NA just isn't good. That is, I mean, that's not going to change between week 1 and week 9. Like, just because teams actually get better doesn't mean they go it doesn't mean they're good by the end, right? It's easy to go from bad to like less bad, and it feels like Immortals, so long as they have, so as Xmithy, these guys who know how to win, are always going to be able to capitalize on NA teams who are never going to play perfect.
Yeah, and I think Soaz has made a career out of beating people who can't play perfect.
Yes.
He's done it at Worlds against RNG in the quarterfinals as well. I do think that unless they're playing Cloud9, every game is winnable, unless Soaz gets solo killed. Then the game's just not winnable.
Yeah. I mean, he just needs to be relevant, really, going forward.
Yeah. I do want to call out, I've kind of been pleasantly surprised with Apollo coming back.
Yeah.
I thought Apollo Hakuho was like a doomed duo. They stayed together for so many years, and I think every year we had the storyline of they got really good synergy and they're actually pretty good, except they'd always finish 9th.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of ask, are we sure that they're good?
I mean, it's like, how do you have a bot lane that's stuck together for this long and they don't I'm not willing to buy into it. Like, they look like Apollo especially, they look great over the last weekend. I didn't feel like they looked that much different than having just Altec in there, though.
I don't think so either, but the team said it was a little bit about communication, and Apollo, he got a pentakill. He got one of the most under-celebrated pentakills in the history of LCS.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to buy into them just because we've seen them struggle so much. I'm glad to see him back. I think he's a solid. Like I said, when I say that there's not much of a difference between him and Johnny, is I think both of them could be in the LCS. You can remove the nameplates though, and I'm not sure I'd be able to tell you one is or isn't there. But that's kind of true for most marksman players. It's like they don't. There's not that many that kind of stand out with their play style. So not a knock against him or against Altec. I think. Like, if it helps your team communication and your morale, then definitely make the move. Clearly, I don't know if it worked out necessarily, but...
We're getting... Okay, we'll do TL, and then I want to get your 6 playoff teams.
Sure.
So, you say liquidate Liquid. And we kind of joked at the start, we promised we'd get here. This is a really interesting point. They're 6-8. I can't believe they 0-2'd after the 2-0 with Tactical to then... I mean, you did say that they would start tactical until he loses.
Yeah, I mean, so...
Yeah, and then he lost right away, so congratulations on predicting that one properly.
So they lost, and then they subbed him out, and I was like... So a part of me hates that move, and part of me also was like, I think you should... I hate it, but I think you had to do it. If like the long term... It's one of those long-term plays, right? Like, I think maybe in the short term, bad idea to sub out tactical, just give them another game, but I think for the long-term play, you're never going to play tactical in the long term over Doublelift. So just get him back.
Unless you actually go undefeated.
Yeah. But even then, like I think both of us said we'd still just trade tactical instead of Doublelift in that particular situation. I'm glad to see Doublelift back. I think if you're going to solve your problems, you need to solve them with your core team. It's going to be with Doublelift. Tactical, it wasn't even like his fault necessarily. They got 4-man dove at level 1, which is not a situation he's probably accustomed to. And I mean, that's just a difference in an experience. I don't know if Doublelift and Core JJ would have played it better because I don't think Tactical necessarily played it poorly. But it was just one of those situations when I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, you'd probably rather have Doublelift in this situation as you saw the team collapsing down on them. And going forward, it's like, I mean, Liquid, they just kind of suck.
So let's get into Liquid sucking because the whole split, both you and I, every time Liquid goes down, we shrug it off and say, not worried yet. They'll be fine. And then we're usually reaffirmed because they'll pop off a big win or they'll win a couple games and suddenly they're tied for second again.
Yep.
And we say, yeah, of course this team's a playoff team.
That could happen again this week, honestly.
It actually could. They play EG and Golden Guardians and they could be 8-8 and then they play FlyQuest and C9 in the final week, which will be a test. But if Liquid's Liquid, then that's actually fine because they're supposed to actually be the very best team.
They're supposed to win all these matches.
They're supposed to win all of it. But I wanted to do something maybe fun and do a bit of a blame game.
Sure.
Like, there are obviously things that go on in times of team, and it is a team game, but if we're trying to pinpoint individuals, how does the blame actually get shared across this Liquid team? Like, who's been bad?
So we're putting Jensen in, like, he's given him ice cream. He's been great.
Yeah, he's in the not scapegoated tier.
I don't blame him at all.
Yeah.
He's, but like, whatever, just give him ice cream.
I agree. I actually think he's been really good.
I think he's one of the best mid laners across the split, period. I think he's had a rough time. I don't blame Brox, though. He hasn't been here the whole time. There's been visa issues.
Do you not blame him because of the visa issues or because of his play?
Visa issues. Plays
because his play.
Yeah, but I'm willing to give him a pass because I think they're kind of tied, right? Like I think the play is tied to the fact that he hasn't been here the whole time. He's still trying to custom. I think the bigger issue is the other 4 guys. Like, again, first team All-Pro, last split. There's no reason they should be able to win with like any random. Like, I actually think you would put like a just solid challenger jungler in there, and they should still be able to look pretty good. And that has not been the case. So it's hard for me to pinpoint the blame on Broxa, especially even when Surenfire was in. It's like they still look bad, right? So I don't want to blame him too much. I think junglers are a product of how the rest of their team plays.
Somewhat a product of the environment, for sure.
Which leaves Impact, Core JJ,
and Doublelift. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Tactical gets free pass too. It's not your fault.
He was fine.
Yeah, you did great. And maybe drafting. Like, drafting is not another player that you can put in.
It's like that's coach. That's analyst, and then there's also coach. But we're just sticking to players right now.
So I think we generally agree mostly that most of the blame goes on these. Like, you might put some blame on Broxa still, but I think those. So, I mean, to you, what is like? How does this shake out between these 3 then? Yeah.
So I think Doublelift's blame has balanced out to be roughly adequate. I think people have said that Doublelift hasn't looked motivated. He hasn't shined in games. I did say that you don't think Doublelift's had a single game that looked like the best AD carry. I think he did have one.
Was it the Varus game?
The Varus game where they just had this big bot diff. One of all of them, which is still a massive underperformance for Doublelift.
Yes.
I think Core JJ has escaped almost all criticism. He's been off.
Yeah, he doesn't look good.
We can excuse it away. We say he's playing with 2 different junglers and different bot laners. Like the people that support needs to be meshed with have just been hot swapping out.
Yep.
But that doesn't change the fact that he's looked bad.
I mean, he went from, to me, like I would have given him MVP probably both splits last year. He did get it 1 split, and he just has not come remotely close to looking like that so far. Like, when you talk, like, the biggest issue for Liquid to me is their bot lane just isn't winning lane right now, and that was how they were winning a lot of games last year. And if you're not winning lane, that's usually not the AD carry's fault. Lane phase is dictated by the support more often than that. Maybe at pro play it's less pronounced than in solo queue. But generally speaking, I think supports have so much agency in the lane phase, and that's not translating to lane victories at the moment. I don't know if it's like, is that because we're seeing so much of that, like that weird level 6 lane swap to top lane to deal with
it might have something to do with it where it was like a little bit too procedural. Have you also noticed that that's basically it just died? Because I think teams got good enough at pushing the bot turret when the other team leaves that teams are more scared to leave it now.
So I don't know. I don't know, like.
I think this might. I'm not 100% on this take, but this would be my hot take. I think Impact gets more blame. Should be getting more blame than anyone else on the team.
So you think Impact?
So remember we talk about WAR, wins over replacement.
Yes.
I think he's like -2.
Wow.
Think about it. He's the one who got solo killed 3 times by Someday.
Yes.
In GP for Aatrox. And what was that Zach game against SOAS?
Yeah, it was kind of a...
like, you just didn't...
I don't know. Zach has not been very impressive to me, period, when people played it.
Yeah.
So...
But those were games that I think were close enough that with an average performance, TL wins.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then in the same vein, we've had maybe like one game where we said, oh yeah, Impact, really solid game there. It's been weird.
But this is also not a thing that's new.
It's not new for Impact.
Where it feels like this happens a lot, where especially in the regular season, and at this point it's not even a meme, where regular season Impact versus playoff Impact has just been so different. I don't know. Like, I think you can speculate on motivation or whatever, but in terms of actual play, like, he's just not been up to par.
Do you remember last year with the Lakers when LeBron missed like 20 games with a groin injury?
Yeah.
And then the Lakers were in like 9th, and he had that interview, and he's like, playoff mode activated. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Do you remember the playoff? And then they just lost.
Yeah, they just kept getting clapped.
They went to like the 12th seed, and everyone started memeing because a lot of times these teams and players think that they can just go into this next gear.
Yeah.
And LeBron actually has a history of being able to do it.
Yeah.
He just couldn't last year. Like, the gear just wasn't there because he was probably just not 100% healthy from his injury, and the environment of the team was so boom from all these other factors.
Yeah.
We might have the same perfect storm here for Team Liquid. Like, all these guys, like Impact and Doublelift, think they can just playoff mode activate, which they need to do now.
Yep.
They are playoff mode. They need to win 3 of their next 4 at least.
They needed to do it 2 weeks ago. Like, I mean,
but they'll still get away with it if they do it now. Like, this is actually the last call. But I don't know if you can do it that quickly. And that'll be the biggest question to me. I still have them. They play EG Golden Guardians FlyQuest C9. I still have them 3-1 because they're still Team Liquid, and those players are still the same.
I mean, I have them in the playoffs still too, but it's like, it's one of those situations where, like, another kind of metaphor for you is, it's like when you're playing video games, it's like a fighting game or something. You start like against your little brother or whatever.
Yeah.
You start losing, you're all kind, and suddenly you start losing. That's when you sit up. You know, it's that big sit up in your gaming chair meme, and I think that's kind of what Team Liquid has to do right now. Is they need to sit up, you know, straighten out their back.
Yeah,
and like fix the shit, you know, because it's like, it's crazy to go from 4 straight loses. You sign Brock, like, it's just, I think it's understated how bad they are. Like, how do you sign Broxa and at this point still be this bad? You know,
look, just they changed one player.
Yeah,
they were the 4-time champions. They upgraded a player.
Yep.
In their statement, and the player that they upgraded is now teamed with SOAS, Aka, Hakuho, and a mix of Alltech and Apollo that we can't tell the difference between.
Yeah.
Apollo's been better, I think. Yeah. And that team is better.
Yep.
Like, that is really all we need to say for how absurd this is right now for Liquid.
How do they fix it? What do they have to do?
It's a good question, because they might be completely boom. I've actually been kind of so shocked that I haven't necessarily been like, oh yeah, it's Brox's early jungle pathing, or it's the fact that they played against Senatom Kench, because it does actually feel like a little bit of everything. I think the reason that when they lose, we're often just saying that the other team is just better overall is because it's very rare that we can pinpoint and say that thing.
Yeah.
Aside from, the 2 Impact games that I just did that thing with. So I don't know, man.
So
I'm sorry that's not a better answer for the viewers out there and for you, but I don't know.
So I was thinking about this on the Metro here.
Okay.
Do you think the bot lane, like we've talked about Senna being a pick Doublelift can't play. Do you think the pool overall is bad for Doublelift? Because it's not just Senna. Traditionally, he's not a Misfortune player either. And if he doesn't know how to play Aphelios, which is, I still don't know what Aphelios does. Maybe he doesn't either.
Yeah.
And so, those are three champions that are at least not especially because Aphelios is new. It's not traditionally associated with him.
You're right.
Is it just a bad bot lane pool for him? We don't see the champs that you think of him being traditionally good on, the Caitlyn's, the Varys, they're not really being played as much.
Yeah, it's like Xiakai Solution, Vayne, Trist, the stuff that can move.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
is that stuff? Is it just a bad meta for him? And if it's bad for him, then it's bad for Liquid, who plays around bot.
It's not great, actually. Having low mobility AD carries is bad for Doublelift. Generally speaking, it's not like he can't have great Varys or Ashe games or MF games, but there's something to that. I think the meta would be bad-ish, but that's still all I got. If tanks, if you can get impact back on tanks, I know this is a throwback and it's like a 2-year-old meme, but his tank play is still just awesome.
If he knows how to, I mean, isn't Zach technically a tank?
I have if you're willing to jump to CLG with me,
sure.
This is a tank point that I have. I have CLG winning 3 of their next 4.
Wow.
I think they can beat Dig, Golden Guardians, and 100 Thieves, and I think they'll lose to C9, which would actually end the split as 6-12. Ruin has COD's only won 3 times. He's basically lost on all the meta stuff.
Yeah.
But he's won with Janna, and he's won with Soraka, and he's been playing a lot of Maokai in solo queue.
Huh.
Maokai's good right now.
Yeah.
So I think Impact might play Maokai if they can find the right matchup for it. I need to figure out exactly what the right matchups for it are. I think you can play it into Aatrox. And I think Ruin will play it next week.
Yep.
I think Impact should play it next week. That's how TL can. That's one weird thing of how they can get back. But yeah.
I mean, what year is it? Just pick Maokai.
It's something I haven't fully thought about because I need to talk to some top laners who have experimented with it or played against it a bit more to see which matchups just hard smash it right now.
That is a really weird Ruin stat, though. For 2 of his 3 wins being John and Soraka.
He's the rank 2 solo queue player, right? So he clearly has individual ability, but actually just put him on the meta bending stuff and maybe you're going to be all right. All right, so who are your 6 playoff teams?
Cloud9, TSM, Team Liquid, FlyQuest, Evil Geniuses, and Immortals.
I have the same ones.
Not necessarily in that order.
Yeah. So that means you have 100 Thieves, Golden Guardians, and Dig missing playoffs.
Yeah, I think 100 Thieves is going to be knocked out. I don't think Golden Guardians. I talked about it a little bit in the blurb. I just don't feel like they have enough in them.
Yeah.
I don't think they're a bad team necessarily. I think they're a solid team that just doesn't have enough in the tank to get the last couple wins they need going down the stretch, whereas the rest of the teams have things that I feel like, hey, this is going to get you a win or 2 here, and it's critical to be able to get that. It's like when we talk about basketball teams is when it's fourth quarter, you need somebody to take the shot for you.
Yep.
Golden Guardians don't have a player, in my opinion, that can take that shot right now, and I think the 6 teams I put in the playoffs have that player.
And their schedule is absurd. TL, TSM, CLG, FlyQuest.
Yeah.
The CLG one is...
I think CLG's a hard matchup.
They're no longer a pushover.
Yeah, not only is CLG have this a mental advantage over you where you're playing against this bottom-of-the-barrel team where you're like, oh, we should beat them.
Yeah.
But they're actually not as bad as their record.
The thing that'll push people... that could push CLG's record into the dumpster is they've mentioned once they're mathematically eliminated from playoffs, which can happen any day now, it's still not the case, that they're just going to be hot swapping players.
No.
They're just going to, whatever works, we know both of these teams are bad, let's try and find something because it's all about summer at this point. So if they actually sub out Pobelter, I hope they don't. They'll be like, we got to see if Tuesday works.
Stixay's going mid lane now. Pobelter's our new jungler. He got some time jungling on TL.
It wouldn't shock me, but I hope they don't do it. So yeah, I have the same as you. This is my order. I have C9, TSM 2, FlyQuest 3, EG 4, tied with TL. So EG TL have a tiebreaker for 4th, which would be mega important.
Yeah.
Since the 5th and 6th team essentially start the playoffs in the losers bracket. Then 100 I actually have Immortals at 8 and 10 making it.
Oh, wow. 8 and 10.
Without tiebreakers. I think that's in play. Normally, we have 9 and 9 be the unofficial cutoff. We'll have some stats that are in broadcast. Our stats team is pulling them. There's a very, very high percentage of times when you're 9 and 9 that you make playoffs. 8 and 10 almost never does. But I think that's in play this year just because of how many wins C9 has accrued and how like pushed together everything is towards the bottom. 100 Thieves 7-11, Golden Guardians 6-12, COG 6-12, Dig 5-13.
Yeah, Dig's not going to win another game. They're just done.
I think they're boomed.
Yeah,
I talked about this with Mark. It just makes me sad. I don't need to continue it. Do you have it?
I heard the segment. I agree with everything you talked about with Dignitas. I got nothing to add to it. Just very disappointed in them.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts after 10 thoughts of writing
just
and many thoughts on
a
the
question
podcast?
Is, going back to the hypothetical fantasy things that we like to talk about.
Okay.
If Liquid does not make playoffs, is this the greatest disappointment in LCS history?
Yes. What would top it?
Because I think the comparison people make a lot is Yellow Star on TSM, but they made finals that year.
They weren't a defending champion.
Yes.
Because COG had actually won the last split. And their regular season was 9 and 9, and I think that included a run right at the end. So at this point in the season, it was pretty equivalent.
Yeah.
Even though this TL1's still worse. But then once you make the final round, it's fine.
Is this more disappointing than 2015 NA Week 2?
The 0-10?
Yeah.
In terms of... No, it's just not. I just don't think it is. If people remember that, like NA...
We will never top that disappointment.
Well, it's because... So week 1... Cloud9 was 3-0.
3-0 with the freaking Balls Diamond 2 Darius Pentakill.
COG was 2-1.
Yeah.
And then TSM was bad.
Yeah.
They were either 0-3 or 1-2.
They were 1-2.
Exactly, yeah. But then they only scheduled 9 games for NA to lose, and they found a way to lose a 10th in a tiebreaker.
It was extremely impressive. I remember we actually did a viewing party at Riot in the Nocturne room.
That must have been a joy.
And then we left a little early. I remember we stayed up all night to go to this, and I remember it was like 8 or 9 a.m. when it finally finished. And I just remember I was staying at my brother's couch at the time because I just moved to LA. I remember just sitting there and being like, damn, did that just happened, huh? Like, because the whole thing was such a fairy tale run, and for it to just fizzle out at the last moment, it was like, I think a real reality.
That was the C9 7th place to Worlds run.
Yeah.
I mean, it was actually 10th place at one point in the regular season, then 7th in summer, didn't even make playoffs, had to win through the gauntlet from their spring success. Reverse swept multiple teams to then basically sweeping week 1. Yeah, that's as big of a fairy tale as it gets. I actually, while we have a minute at the end, there was the announcement that MSI has been delayed.
Right, so
it'll happen in the summer split.
Another thing that adds like a little bit of finale feel to the spring split, where like this LCS spring final matters a bit more because there's nothing immediately after it.
Yeah, well, I like your phrasing there because I think there's going to be a bunch of mixed opinions there of whether the people that say spring split doesn't matter are just going to say spring split matters even less now.
Yeah,
like Eeyore ho-hum. I think there is validity to that in the sense that if you actually only care about Worlds, sure. I don't think that's how C9 is operating.
Yep.
It's not how TSM is operating. Maybe TL is operating that way, and they're just not willing to say it. Like, I really hope not, because it does feel like this team is boom and has long-lasting implications if they make a boom.
They should wake up. If
they miss playoffs, do they just run it back for summer?
Yeah.
Or do they actually switch something? And can they switch something? And like that's going to be a real conversation. And there was a Reddit comment that I actually really liked, because I'm not saying that this is the only way you can think about it. I don't think I'm going to be able to find it, but this Reddit user was basically really frustrated with people saying things didn't matter. And he ended up deleting his account because too many people flamed him afterwards. But he basically is like, okay, like what does matter to you? MSI is one of the most viewed international tournaments like of the year.
Across all esports.
Yes. Look at the viewership that spring finals gets. Look at the viewership that spring regular season gets. Like, all of this stuff matters.
Yep.
Like, there are definitely degrees and ways you ladder up towards things, but some of the incredibly memorable moments like Stixxay getting that pentakill against Doublelift in the CLG TSM game in 2015 spring finals was just an amazingly memorable moment. So
Jensen Zonias came in spring. There's a lot of spring.
Yeah,
moments.
and like tell me Jensen said that game didn't matter when you look at his player cam afterwards.
I mean, I always tell people when people say spring doesn't matter is I tell them what Sneaky told me after we were in Korea and they had just made semifinals, and I remember asking him, okay, how does this compare to, like, in terms of like winning that quarterfinal and advancing was great. I think like I remember like famously Kobe like started crying. All of us were like extremely happy that NA had advanced to semifinals. I asked him like how happy was he in that moment and like how does it compare to past things, and he still said that the best moment in his career wasn't then. It was when they had won in NA finals, like the last time, because it had been 4 years since they had won.
So that would have been the 2014 spring split.
Yeah, and he was saying like it's just when you win the thing, there's that moment of like, hey, we won.
I'm on top of the hill.
Yeah, we're on top of the hill. I had a survey at the beginning of this season as well where I asked like, would you rather win LCS finals or would you rather make it out of groups? And 60% of players said they'd rather win finals.
Yeah,
and I think that's almost lower than it should be, and it feels like until you win that moment, you don't know what it feels like. I think we've bought in a little too much to the Reddit perception of you need to advance at Worlds. It doesn't.
Yeah, I agree.
But to most, like, it doesn't matter if you make quarters or semis at Worlds unless you win the whole thing. Like who cares if you make it that far? It's such an arbitrary measure of success.
Yeah.
Whereas winning the LCS gives you that moment in the light where you're on the stage and like with thousands of people around you, the confetti's raining on you, and I think that's the moment you remember. You don't remember freaking advancing out of group stage. That's that's like maybe you were relieved.
It's like a stepping stone, right?
Like
you're
maybe,
obviously going to remember winning Worlds or MSI more than winning a spring split, but just like making it beyond the halfway point.
Yeah,
it's like it's really frustrating when you don't.
Yeah,
and I think that's what's happening. I think the loss aversion is so high that people will then say that making it out of groups is better because, well, I won't get flamed if I make it out of groups or something like that.
I mean, spring matters. None of the players on Cloud9, as we've talked about, have ever won an LCS final.
Yeah, and I don't think any of them have said that spring doesn't matter. I think it's true that there are demotivated players in the LCS during spring.
Yes.
For sure.
And I can kind of empathize with that even. Like, I get it. But I do think spring matters.
All right. Well, we're in alignment. Spring split matters.
Yeah, not just a talking point that they're making us say either.
Yeah, we can say whatever we want on this podcast.
There's producers off camera right now just nodding. Yeah. Spring finals. Did you watch the Bucks Lakers and Clippers Lakers games at all, or at least follow them? I caught like some highlights after the fact, but did not.
Do you remember when we talked about MVP a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, and then LeBron
I charted the way that LeBron could make MVP.
And so Giannis was not playing this week, and LeBron came in and just started clapping. He got Player of the Week, and I mean, like LeBron went like old, like just straight up, just.
Lakers are only like 2 losses behind the Bucks now because they lost to the Nets last night.
I mean, it's coming up. Like, it's less unanimous now than it was before.
It could happen. He might get the Lifetime Achievement MVP.
It's like
we'll see.
If it happens, it's not the worst. Not the worst thing. Right?
Yeah.
Definitely, it's LeBron and Giannis. There's nobody else at this point, which is crazy. I don't if you remember the beginning of the season when Harden was averaging like 40, like close to 40 points a game. Yeah. And we were all sitting there like, oh yeah, it's going to be Harden. Like, should Harden getting 40 points a game, or should it go to Giannis who's averaging like a 30-15?
Yeah.
And now Harden's not even in the conversation.
Yeah.
So just testament to don't over-index on early performances. Wait for the whole thing. Good lesson to apply to League of Legends as well.
I think so. Actually, we need to do this. We're 2 weeks away from the MVP.
Yeah. And
I don't think we have a front runner.
There's not. I mean,
everyone's just kind of murkily saying C9 player.
Yeah, C9 player.
But we don't know who. There's going to be some like massive vote splitting.
It's C9 Silhouette is sitting right there. Because the vote splitting was my argument for Power of Evil earlier. But I think at the start, if you remember my parlay bet earlier, the 5 options were Cloud9 wins out, which is no longer a thing. CLG loses out, no longer a thing. Yeah. Golden Guardians hitting 5th, still possible.
Yeah, but not going to happen.
Liquid hitting 2nd, possible. Yeah. And then the last one was Power of Evil winning MVP. So it looks like all the parlays might fall through.
The lesson of your 5 parlays is don't gamble.
Yeah, don't. I mean, they don't pan out, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you're looking at it right now, and there is no like who do you pick? It's not like Licorice is definitely not the front runner. I mean, Blabber. You mentioned a small champion pool. Niski, I think, sacrifices a little too much to have that like solo carry narrative going for him. Sven's KDA is no longer right up there. Vulcan is a support player. We don't like to pick support players often for this award.
So I want to give you an MVP, but I also want to couch it. I was listening to a Bill Simmons podcast where they were discussing LeBron Giannis, and I really liked something he said because there's so many people that come out and say, LeBron's my MVP, Giannis is my MVP. Yeah. And he's just like, shut up. We got like 20 games left. Wait until we've seen the games to give me your MVP. Yeah. But I will tell you that I'm currently leaning Giannis and LeBron's in the race. That's essentially what he said. So for me, I don't know yet. I am leaning between Blabber and Vulcan, although I think the front runner is Niski. And
wait, so how does... So you don't...
I'm leaning for my vote between Blabber and Vulcan.
But you think everybody else is
now,
going...
I think like if we polled people today and they started thinking about it, they'd give it to Niski.
Okay. I think that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I think that's probably... I think at least I agree with you that the lean is probably towards Niski. I don't know if my personal MVP would be... I mean, Vulcan's probably right up there.
Yeah, Vulcan's like... There's that Player of the Week meme. He's played a lot of Tom Kench, but like...
I would probably still lead in Blabber personally. I think overall, it's Blabber, Vulcan, Niski. I can't say Bjergsen because he's had some rough games, but who? I mean, who's the second? Is there a player on another team that's in the conversation at this point?
I mean, if TSM wins out, and Broken Blade or Bjergsen continue to either go deathless or Broken Blade carries every team fight was set
to look like what
they'll get like second or third place votes. I think from some teams.
It's got to be a Cloud9 player. Right?
I hope so.
Okay, but what if a Cloud9 loses out because they're trolling?
Right. Okay, if that happens, I think all bets are off.
Yeah.
If that happens, I think like Broken Blade's in play.
I mean, this is the worst parlay bet to take right now. Is if I give you a few options for who to take. But I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like we talk like Cloud9's already a 1 out. Like, but they're joking on Twitter about like, oh, what should we pick going to the next one? And it really does not matter if they win the next few games. Like at this point, you're already the first seed. I really don't care if you're 17-1 versus like 14-4. Like honestly, so it's kind of hard for me to sit here and be like, oh yeah, this like maybe that's what they're playing for though, is they're gonna start trolling each other, thinking like, oh, the MVP's up for grabs. So I need to pick like Vayne here so I can look good.
Right.
I mean that's really all they got left to play for, right? Like the other guys actually have to try because they're still all in danger of missing playoffs.
Yeah.
But Cloud9 can just do whatever they want the next few weeks.
I mean, if they really want to feed an MVP, they can. Right, they can pick compositions that are trying to allow one person to shine, and they can allow them to shine. Right, if you want to feed Vulcan, you're going to stop picking him Tom Kench. You're going to pick him more Pike games. Right, and if he starts popping off on Pike, you'll be like, wow, no one else can pop off on Pike. Vulcan's the MVP.
Or if you want to screw him over, just put him on like Yumi or something. Like the people just hate watching; they just won't vote for him. Or like Jana, where you just like sit back there with a shield.
Yeah, if they want to give Blabber the MVP, they put Vulcan on Yumi and they pop him onto Blabber because people can't tell that it's actually two champions.
So with the last parlay dead, I'm going to make a parlay up on the spot. I'm going to have you gamble right here. So I'm going to give you 5 options again. I'm just going to real quick on the spot. Number 1 is Cloud9 loses in the first round of the playoffs.
Okay.
Number 2 is Liquid wins the split.
Okay.
Number 3 is an MVP goes to anybody that's not Cloud9.
Okay.
Number 4 is... Man, these are getting harder. All right. Number 4 is going to be... What's a TSM one? Let's go with Wait, did I already do TSM?
You said Liquid wins the split.
Okay, I said Liquid wins. Number 4, we'll go... Because TSM winning the split's not a bad...
Yeah, I just picked that one.
Yeah. Number 4 would be... Let's go with Bjergsen doesn't die once the rest of the split.
Okay.
Number 5, we'll go with... Let's do an EG one. No, let's do an Immortals. Number 5 is Immortals finishes top 3.
Okay, Immortals isn't finishing top 3. C9 losing in the first round of the playoffs doesn't actually mean they'd be eliminated from the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Because they go in the loser bracket.
Yeah.
So I also think that's kind of... I need to pick 2.
Yeah, just 2.
Liquid winning the split and C9 losing the first round of playoffs because they can happen at the same time.
Oh.
That's the reason.
So
they need to be linked. Yeah. So Liquid will sneak in at 4th. And maybe C9 is feeling extra edgy, and they BM him and they choose him as their opponent.
So we don't think that Bjergsen can just continue this deathless streak for 4 more games?
No.
Which one was the least like which one was the one where if somebody took that one you'd be like, oh, you're just hard inting your bet?
So actually, this is probably just my biases at play. I thought Immortals third.
Yeah.
Because actually, that's in play. They just need to win 3 games. And then
that's not that hard.
Yeah, it's actually probably the most likely. It just didn't come to mind.
All right.
Thanks for joining, Kien Lam. For those of you listening, if you want to get these podcasts as soon as they come out, you can subscribe on the YouTube, on the Spotify, on the Apple Podcasts, on the SoundCloud. Just Google JLXP and the platform that you want to find it. I've had great success finding it in that specific way. Thank you again for listening. Check out Kien Lam's 10 Thoughts. It released this morning. We are recording this. It just hit noon. You should probably be able to listen to it in about 4 hours. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jeff.